weirdly enough, most of the culture that I have been consuming this week has been resignation letters.
Oh, sure.
Oh, yes, girl.
Fuck Gemini season. Resignation season is here.
I need a playlist of all the resignation letters you're bumping this week.
First of all, I think this was right after we recorded last week that the New York Times op-ed section published a piece by Senator Tom Cotton. He wrote a op-ed which called for widespread military intervention to quell the peaceful protests around the country last week, the protests that we were talking about. And of course, there was outcry from the public, but also from Times staffers themselves. And it ended up with opinion editor James Bennet publishing an editorial explaining his choice to publish the Cotton piece, arguing that the primary problem was that it was published, quote unquote, without context.
Oh, you don't say.
Then he admitted that he hadn't read the piece before publication and that he had resigned by Sunday.
Okay, when I heard that he didn't fucking read the thing, first of all, if that happened at a college newspaper, that would be disappointing, period, let alone the New York Times. But secondly, I was wondering if that was a lie he told because it sounded better than actually having to reconcile with what was inside the piece. You know, like if that somehow felt more flattering to him to be like, well, I didn't read it. It was a total accident. Things just slip into the paper sometimes.
Yeah, I would rather be negligent than stupid. So I think you're right. I think you're right. What an idiot.
I found the entire thing fascinating because, of course, it is part of the ongoing quote-unquote culture war between the right and the left, right? This idea that we have to be objective and we have to put all of the ideas into a newspaper. And it's just dumb because, one, it assumes that people like Tom Cotton are arguing things in good faith. And I don't think that there's any way that telling the military to come in and quell protesters is an argument that can be made in good faith, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I thought there was something strange just in general about the piece. It lacked information. It's the kind of thing where he compensated for information with condescension. He kept saying things like, people who don't know their history are arguing the opposite of what I'm saying. And it's like, well, you're not telling me anything about the history or those people. It's just this, you sound like a white guy at a cocktail party being like, those people, you know?
And then, of course, you have people like Barry Weiss, who's at the New York Times, who will never find an awful opinion that she won't defend, going after it. Olivia Nuzzi is another person who is doing it. And you just sort of end up with this concept of people saying, if we don't publish it, it's like we're censoring things. And I really thought that after all this time, someone would have read the fucking First Amendment at all, ever. People talk about it so much, and yet they always seem to miss the fact that the New York Times not publishing an op-ed from someone is not censorship. You have standards. You are a private institution. It's not the government censoring your thought. And so many people kept arguing that we needed this information, otherwise it was being quelled. And I just don't ever see an argument for a sitting senator you not knowing what he's thinking, right? Like, he had already tweeted the sentiment that was in this op-ed a day prior. People seen it. He has all of these followers who are going to see it. So it didn't need to be amplified by the New York Times. And then you have the recent resignation too of the editor-in-chief of Bon Appetit. The thing that happened here, which was similar to, say, the New York Times, Adam Rapoport, the editor-in-chief, resigned on Monday after a photo of him in brownface resurfaced. But the thing that I want to point out is that so many outlets are framing this as the editor-in-chief resigned after a photo of him in brownface surface. You know, like there was an Instagram where he was dressed.
Our Boricua king, our Puerto Rican
right.
Boricua king.
By the way, I would have just thought it was the lighting or filter if the photo itself didn't point out that he's supposed to be like Puerto Rican.
Yes.
What people are ignoring, however, is that many former and current staffers were calling him out for a culture of racism that exists at Bon Appetit. You know, we were finding out that white editors who were in these test kitchen videos were being paid to be in them. People of color who were in the videos were not really being paid, or they were being paid only like $400 a pop. And there was just this idea that we talked about with Allison of this major food magazine that's pushing knowledge of different food cultures is basically just sort of colonializing it. You know, it's like having these white people cook these dishes, putting a white face on it, having non-white people do the labor, and then really just sort of creating this awful culture for employees. And now it even has, as of this morning, like Condé Nast, you know, being like, well, we didn't know that so many people were so upset, you know, about pay disparities and et cetera. And I find that to be bullshit. And two, I just wanted to mention that is the framing that you should be talking about, because that's where a lot of these resignations are coming from this week, right? They're not just from minor incidents like a photo. If that were the case, then investigative journalist Yashar, who has decided that he is going to destroy Allison Roman for Chrissy Teigen, when he, like, the other day posted a photo of her that was supposed to be her in, like, Chola face. It was actually just a Halloween photo of her dressed as Amy Winehouse.
It's good.
Is that true?
Yeah.
I didn't know that was the upshot of that whole controversy.
It was like she was dressed as Amy Winehouse. There was the hoops and everything. And there was even a moment where he was like, you know, I've never seen Amy Winehouse in hoops like this. This is clearly Chola face. And people were responding with photos of Amy Winehouse in hoop earrings, which is a thing she wore often. But that's just to say that people are not being canceled for old Halloween photos, you know? Adam Rapoport's resignation was because of a culture that he was fostering at this company. And I think the James Bennet thing is sort of the same thing too. You know, it's like what kind of culture are you creating if you are bringing in people like Tom Cotton to do op-eds, which are dangerous to black people and the black people that you work with at the New York Times.
And also the executive editor of Philadelphia Inquirer, who stepped down because they said buildings matter too, like right in the thrush of everything that's going on right now. We'd love to see that.
What is he in the pocket? Is he in the pocket of Legos? What is that?
Oh my gosh, I love a good wordplay. Let's stay and come back.